The alien warship cut through the upper layers of Earth's sky, leaving trails of fire behind as it entered the blue atmosphere. Inside the ship, General Threx stood tall, his scaled hands resting behind his back. His red eyes glowed with pride and mockery as he looked down at the small blue planet beneath him. "Earth," he said in a deep voice, his tone filled with sarcasm. "The so-called Deathworld." His officers laughed loudly, their metallic armor clanging in rhythm. They had conquered dozens of worlds before, frozen moons, molten planets, toxic seas. To them, Earth looked harmless, green and soft, a place for weak creatures. The ship landed in a dry desert far from human cities. The sandstorm rose, covering everything in a golden fog. The first door opened with a hiss of steam, and Threx stepped out with arrogance in every move. His heavy boots hit the ground, sending small clouds of dust into the air. He straightened his tall frame and smiled proudly. "This is it," he muttered. "This weak little world." Behind him, his elite soldiers followed, armored and ready. Their weapons gleamed under the sunlight. They looked around with disgust, finding no challenge in the endless sand. Not far away, a small group of human soldiers waited. Their uniforms were simple, their weapons not as advanced as the aliens, yet their faces were calm and steady. One of them, Captain Reed, walked forward. He was not tall compared to Threx, but his eyes carried confidence. "Welcome to Earth," Captain Reed said softly. Threx let out a cold laugh. "You dare to welcome me?" he replied. "You should be on your knees." But the human did not move. He just stood there silently, watching. The air between them grew heavy. Threx took another step toward him, but something strange happened. His body felt heavier than before. His legs trembled slightly under the armor. He ignored it and tried again, but each step grew harder. "What is this?" Threx said, frowning. He looked down at his boots as if they were stuck. His heart began to pound. "Why do I feel heavier?" Reed's expression didn't change. "You're standing under 1G, he said. "Earth's gravity." Threx's soldiers began to struggle too. Their breathing grew louder. One dropped to his knees, gasping. Another tried to adjust his armor, but the weight pulled him down again. Threx clenched his fists, his pride refusing to bend. "Ridiculous," he shouted. "This is nothing." He tried to lift his arm, but his weapon felt like a boulder. His body screamed under the force pressing him down. The human captain took a slow step forward. His boots pressed easily into the sand. "You called Earth weak," he said quietly. "But this planet shapes its children with storms and fire. You came here as conquerors, but Earth does not welcome the proud." Threx gritted his teeth. Sweat rolled down the side of his face. His knees began to shake. He had fought in black holes and acid clouds, but he had never faced something like this. An invisible hand pressed him lower and lower until one knee touched the ground. He tried to rise, but his armor felt like chains. Every muscle burned. He could hear his soldiers crying out behind him. The ground seemed to pull them closer, as if the planet itself was alive. Reed's voice cut through the air, calm but firm. "On your world, gravity is light," he said. "You float through life thinking you are strong. On Earth, even standing is an act of strength." Threx's claws dug into the sand, his pride shattered. "This planet," he gasped, "it's crushing me." Reed looked down at him. "That's the weight of a death world," he said. "You called us weak, but you cannot even stand among us." The general's vision blurred. The air around him shimmered with heat. His chest rose and fell rapidly. He wanted to speak, to order his soldiers, but no words came. His voice broke into a low growl. The humans stood silently, watching, not with anger, but with understanding. They had seen arrogance fall before. Earth had broken stronger things than pride. Threx lowered his head. The sand clung to his armor. His body trembled. His arrogance melted away. And for the first time in his long military life, he understood what true strength meant. It was not about weapons or empires. It was about endurance. Captain Reed turned and looked toward the horizon. "Welcome to the death world," he said quietly. Behind him, the alien general remained on his knees, trapped by a gravity he once mocked, and humbled by a planet that never needed to fight to win. Threx had never known pain like this. His body was made for war, bred in a world of low gravity where soldiers moved like shadows, light and quick, But on Earth, every movement was a battle. Each breath burned inside his chest. Each heartbeat felt heavier. He tried to stand, but his knees refused to obey. The once mighty general now knelt before a species he had mocked. Around him, his troops struggled as well. Some had already collapsed. Their armor pressed them into the ground. Others tried to remove their helmets. Gasping for air, panic began to spread through the alien ranks like wildfire. Threx slammed his fist into the ground. Sand scattered under the force. But even that simple motion sent pain up his arm. He gritted his teeth. "Stand up," he roared to his soldiers. "You are warriors of Varnak, not insects." But his words carried no power now, only desperation. His soldiers looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. They had followed him across galaxies. But here, under this invisible weight, even loyalty began to fade. Captain Reed watched from a few steps away, his hands behind his back, his calm face showing no pride, only quiet understanding. He walked closer, the human steps steady and effortless under the same gravity that broke alien bones. "Strange feeling, isn't it?" Reed said softly. "To realize that power means nothing when nature decides otherwise." Threx glared up at him. "What kind of sorcery is this?" he hissed. Reed shook his head. "No sorcery, General. This is Earth. You mocked our world. Now it's teaching you a lesson no war ever could." The wind picked up, blowing waves of dust around them. The heat shimmered in the air. One of Threx's officers fell flat, his breathing sharp and shallow. Threx tried to move toward him, but collapsed again. His armor crushed him harder with each second. Reed crouched slightly, his voice low. "You see, General, every child born here learns to fight the planet first. The gravity trains their bones, the storms test their will, and the pain makes them unbreakable." Threx growled. "You think this makes you superior?" Reed smiled faintly. "No, it makes us survivors." A deep silence followed, broken only by the sound of wind brushing across metal. In that silence, Threx began to feel something new. Respect. A small spark of realization flickered in his mind. Humans didn't conquer with strength alone. They endured. They adapted. They outlasted. But his pride refused to die so easily. "I will not be defeated by dirt and gravity," he snarled, forcing himself to rise again. His legs trembled violently. Veins bulged under his green skin. He managed to lift his torso, his breath ragged. For a brief second, he stood tall again. The human soldiers watched silently, not laughing, not mocking. They simply observed, like witnesses to a truth that needed no words. Threx raised his weapon, trying to aim it at Reed, but his hand shook uncontrollably. The barrel dropped, his arms too heavy to hold steady. He cursed under his breath. The planet itself felt like an enemy he could not see, one that pressed on his soul. Reed took a single step forward, his eyes calm but sharp. "You came here to prove we were weak," he said. "But look around you. General, your men can't even stand. Earth has already won." Threx's weapon slipped from his grip, hitting the sand with a dull thud. His shoulders slumped. His pride bled away like water from a cracked vessel. "Tell me, human," he whispered, "why would anyone live on such a cursed world?" Reed looked up at the blazing sky. "Because surviving here teaches us to never give up," he said. "Our pain is our teacher. Our planet is our forge." Threx lowered his head. The sand clung to his armor again, heavier now with sweat and shame. He could feel Earth beneath him, steady and ancient. The gravity was no longer just a physical force. It felt alive, testing his will, weighing his heart. He finally understood why humans had lasted this long. They didn't rule the stars yet, but they ruled themselves. Their strength was not in their machines or weapons, but in their endurance. Reed turned to walk away, leaving the alien army kneeling in the dust. "When you return to your fleet," he said, "tell them the truth." Threx managed a weak voice. "And what truth is that?" Reed stopped and looked over his shoulder. "That Earth doesn't need to fight. It only needs to exist, and the galaxy will bow." The wind carried those words away across the dunes, and the alien general lowered his gaze, feeling the weight of his arrogance more than the weight of the planet. As the human soldiers moved out, the last sound Threx heard was the soft crunch of Earth's soil under human boots, steady, confident, unbroken. He had arrived as a conqueror, but now he knew no one conquers a death world. The next few hours felt like years for General Threx. His body refused to move, his armor pressed into his skin like a coffin. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder inside his chest. The air was thick and heavy. The very ground beneath him seemed to drag his pride deeper into the dust. When he finally opened his eyes, he was no longer in the desert. He was lying inside a human facility, a metal chamber filled with soft lights and humming machines. His breathing mask was gone, replaced by a small device attached near his mouth, supplying him air. Two humans stood near the corner, whispering quietly. They were not soldiers but medics. Their movements were calm and steady. One of them noticed Threx was awake and approached slowly. "You're lucky we found you before the sun cooked your armor," the human said kindly. "You would have been gone in another hour." Threx tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "Why save me?" he managed to say. The medic smiled faintly. "Because that's what we do," he said, "even for enemies." Threx turned his gaze toward the ceiling, confusion mixing with shame. On his world, weakness was punished, mercy was a sign of failure. But here, the same species that had defeated him now treated him with care. Soon after, Captain Reed entered the room, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. His expression was calm. "How are you feeling, General?" he asked. Threx laughed weakly, the sound hollow. "Crushed," he said. "Your world has no mercy." Reed folded his arms. "Our world gives no mercy, but our people still do," he replied. "That's the difference." The human captain walked closer, placing a hand on the alien's arm. "You came here to prove your strength," he said. "But strength isn't just muscle or power. It's endurance, compassion, and the will to rise again." Threx looked away, his pride still clinging like old armor. "Your planet broke me," he said bitterly. "And yet, your people heal me." Reed smiled faintly. "That's the paradox of humanity. General, we destroy what threatens us, and we save what surrenders." Days passed, and Threx began to recover. The humans allowed him to move around the base under light gravity assistance. At first, he could barely take a few steps before collapsing. But every day he improved a little more. He noticed something remarkable. Humans trained beside him, pushing themselves even harder under the same crushing gravity. He watched them run, lift, sweat, and fall, only to rise again. No one mocked failure. Instead, they helped each other. A fallen soldier was never left behind, and every small victory was celebrated as a team. One evening, Threx asked Reed, "Why do you fight so hard to endure this world? You could live somewhere easier." Reed looked out the window at the stormy sky. "Because Earth made us who we are," he said. "We learned to survive its storms, and now we survive anything the galaxy throws at us." Threx stood silently, watching the humans in training. He could feel the pull of gravity even now, but it no longer felt like punishment, it felt like a teacher. That night, as he lay on his bunk, he thought of his home world, Varnak, where gravity was so light that even a weak soldier could leap across cliffs. His people had always called Earthlings reckless for living under such force, but now, he understood, it was not recklessness, it was courage. He remembered his soldiers, still recovering in nearby rooms, being treated by human medics. No one was chained, no one tortured. The humans treated even their enemies with honor. The next morning, Reed entered again, holding a small glass of water. "Drink this," he said. "You'll need strength." Threx took it carefully, his claws trembling. "On my planet," he said slowly, "the weak are discarded. Here, the strong protect them." Reed nodded. "That's why you lost, General," he said, not in mockery, but in truth. "Because you thought mercy was weakness." Threx lowered his eyes, shame and understanding battling inside him. He finally realized that strength was not about dominance but endurance, not about pride but unity. Later that day, Reed took him outside. The evening sun cast long shadows over the desert. The air shimmered with heat. The same ground that had broken him once now felt different, familiar even. "Look," Reed said, pointing toward the horizon. "That's the same desert where you fell." Threx nodded slowly, his voice quiet. "Yes," he said, "but it's also where I learned to stand." Reed smiled. "Then maybe Earth didn't crush you after all, General." Threx looked at him, the faintest hint of respect in his red eyes. "No," he said, It reshaped me. The wind blew softly across the sand, carrying away the dust of arrogance and leaving only truth. Days turned into weeks, and the alien General Threx slowly learned how to walk under Earth's pull. Every step was a test, every movement a reminder of his defeat. Yet something inside him began to change. The same gravity that once crushed his pride now grounded his thoughts. He no longer looked at humans as fragile creatures. Instead, he began to see them as something entirely different, stubborn, resilient, and impossibly brave. One afternoon, Captain Reed entered the base briefing room. His tone was calm but serious. "A quake has hit the southern sector," he said. "We're sending a rescue team. General, you're coming with us." Threx raised an eyebrow. "Rescue team?" he repeated, confused. "Not soldiers?" Reed smiled faintly. "You'll see." Minutes later, they boarded a heavy transport craft that shook under the roaring winds. The desert below was cracked and trembling. Far ahead, columns of smoke rose into the air. As they descended, Threx saw collapsed buildings, broken roads, and people running, not from battle, but toward danger. Humans in rescue suits rushed into the wreckage, lifting debris, carrying injured survivors. Their faces were covered in dust, their hands bleeding, but none of them stopped. Threx watched in disbelief as one soldier crawled into a burning structure to pull out a child. "Why risk their lives?" Threx asked quietly. "There's no victory in this." Reed turned to him, his eyes reflecting the fire outside. "There's no greater victory than saving a life," he said. "That's what makes us human." Threx stepped out of the craft, the heat pressing against his armor. The gravity still felt heavy, but this time he didn't resist it. He walked toward a fallen wall where several humans were digging. Without thinking, he joined them. His claws tore through stone and metal. His alien strength, once used for war, now found a new purpose. A human soldier looked up at him, surprised but grateful. "Keep digging there," she said. "Someone's trapped underneath." Threx nodded silently and continued. His breath came hard, his muscles burned, but he didn't stop. Together, they uncovered a small girl covered in dust. Her eyes opened weakly, and she smiled faintly before being carried away. Something inside Threx shifted at that moment. It wasn't victory or pride. It was peace. The humans around him didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. They simply moved on to help the next person, as if saving lives was just another duty. Later that night, as the rescue operation ended, Threx sat by the campfire outside the damaged city. The sky above was red from smoke and twilight. Reed sat beside him, sipping from a metal cup. "You fought beside us today," Reed said. "How did it feel?" Threx looked into the fire, his eyes reflecting the flickering light. "It felt right," he said quietly. "I have fought countless battles, but this is the first time I fought for something." Reed smiled. "Now you understand us a little better." Threx nodded slowly. "Yes, I do. You fight not because you love war, but because you hate giving up," he said. "You fight against everything. Nature, pain, even your own limits." Reed placed the cup down. "That's what Earth taught us," he said. "Every day here is a test, and every storm we survive makes us stronger." Threx tilted his head. "And yet, you still help others even when it risks your life." "That's the difference between survival and humanity," Reed replied. "Survival is living, humanity is caring." For a long time, neither spoke. The fire crackled softly, and in the distance, the faint cries of survivors mixed with the sound of rebuilding. Threx finally said, "I once thought compassion was weakness, but now I see it is strength, the kind that can't be crushed by gravity or pride." Reed nodded. "You're learning fast, General." Threx gave a faint grin. "Perhaps Earth's gravity isn't trying to break me anymore," he said. "Maybe it's teaching me how to stand the right way." The human captain chuckled softly. "That's the lesson every one of us learns here." As the night grew darker, Threx looked up at the stars. Among them was his home world. Far away, light, and easy. For the first time, it didn't feel like home anymore. Here, under the crushing sky of Earth, he had found something heavier than gravity, the weight of understanding, and the strength that comes only from caring. The flames flickered in his eyes, and Threx whispered to himself, "Maybe this death world isn't cursed after all." The sun was rising over the battered Earth base, its golden light spilling across the horizon like fire over steel. General Threx stood at the edge of the landing field, his eyes following the light. For weeks, he had trained under Earth's gravity, fought beside humans, and learned to respect what he once despised. But that morning, something unexpected pierced the peace. An alarm, sharp and deep, echoing across the desert sky. Reed rushed out of the command center, his face tense. "They're here," he said. "Your fleet." Threx turned sharply, his pulse quickening. High above, the clouds parted to reveal massive alien warships descending through the atmosphere. The same insignia gleamed on their hulls, the mark of Varnak's high command, his people, his soldiers, his home. The humans began preparing defenses. Fighters rolled out from underground hangars. Soldiers took positions. The air filled with urgency, but not panic. Humanity had faced extinction before and refused to break. Threx stood frozen, torn between two worlds. Reed looked at him carefully. "You don't have to fight us," he said quietly, "but you have to choose." The words hit Threx harder than any gravity could. His loyalty to Varnak was carved into his bones, but his heart now carried Earth's weight. The fleet above sent a transmission. A voice filled the air, cold, commanding, familiar. "General Threx," it said, "you have been missing for too long. We detect human life around your beacon. You are surrounded. Prepare for extraction." Threx's throat tightened. He knew that tone. His superior, Commander Drell, a ruthless officer who believed mercy was a disease. Reed stepped closer. "If they land, it won't be an extraction," he said. "It'll be an invasion." Threx's claws clenched. His mind screamed in conflict. He looked toward the sky again, the thunder of engines growing louder. "They will kill you," Threx said. "All of you." Reed met his gaze, calm and steady. "Then we'll stand, like we always do." Something broke inside Threx, the planet beneath his feet, the humans beside him, the weight in his chest. All of it pulled him toward one truth. For the first time, he understood what choice meant. It wasn't about survival or duty. It was about what felt right. He activated his old communicator. The device flickered to life. "This is General Threx," he said into the static. "Abort your descent." There was silence, then laughter from the other end. "You sound weak, Threx," Commander Drell mocked. "What have these humans done to you?" Threx looked at Reed, then back at the sky. "They showed me what strength really means," he said. "It's not power, it's purpose." Drell's voice turned sharp. "You've betrayed your kind." Threx's tone grew firm, steady like Earth's gravity. "No, I've betrayed arrogance," he said. "I once mocked this planet, but now I kneel before its truth." The transmission cut abruptly. Above, the warships began to descend faster. Earth's defense turrets powered up, the air buzzing with tension. Reed gave a short nod. "Then we stand together." Threx walked to the human line. His steps were slow but certain. The soldiers glanced at him. Once their enemy, now standing in their ranks, he grabbed a heavy railgun. The weapon barely balanced in his hands, but he held it with determination. The first alien dropships broke through the clouds, beams of energy slicing through the air. The battle began. Explosions thundered across the desert. Humans fought fiercely, their willpower burning brighter than the rising sun. Threx moved like a living wall, shielding human soldiers from the enemy's fire. His strength, amplified by Earth's gravity, tore through armor. He no longer fought for conquest, but for belonging. The comms buzzed with chaos. "They're targeting the reactor," Reed shouted. "We need to stop that ship." Without hesitation, Threx charged forward. His armor cracked, his breath heavy. Every step sent pain through his body. But he didn't stop. He leapt onto a damaged fighter, using its launcher to propel himself upward. The gravity pulled at him like chains, but he defied it. He crashed into the enemy ship, tearing open its hull. Flames and smoke surrounded him, and for the first time in his life, he smiled. From below, Reed watched in silence as the alien vessel exploded in the sky. The sound echoed like thunder across the land. The humans cheered, but Reed's eyes remained on the falling debris. In the distance, Threx's voice came through the calm, weak but clear. "Tell your world, it's stronger than any I've known." The transmission faded, and the desert wind carried the echo away. As the smoke cleared, The humans stood beneath the quiet sky. Earth was scarred but standing. Like it always did, Reed looked up and whispered. He made his choice. And somewhere above, under the weight of a death world, an alien's soul found peace. The desert was quiet again, the smoke rising like ghosts from the battlefield. The air carried the smell of metal and ash. Captain Reed stood among the ruins, his armor covered in dust. The sun burned low on the horizon, and the silence after war felt heavier than gravity itself. They had won, but the victory came with a price. Threx, the alien general who once mocked Earth, was gone. The ship he destroyed had saved the base, but his signal vanished in the explosion. For hours, humans searched the wreckage, calling his name through the static, but there was no answer. Reed watched the sky slowly turn crimson. He gave his life for a planet that wasn't his, he said quietly. That's more human than most humans I've met. The soldiers nearby nodded. None spoke. The world that once feared aliens now mourned one. 2 days later, as the wreckage cooled, a recovery drone picked up a faint life signal near the edge of the crater. Reed ran toward it, his heart pounding. The heat made the air shimmer, and through the haze, he saw a movement. A broken silhouette dragging itself across the sand. It was Threx. His armor was shattered, his scales blackened, his breathing shallow but alive. Reed knelt beside him, gripping his hand. "You stubborn creature," he said with a shaky smile. "You survived." Threx's eyes flickered open, faint but still burning. "It takes more than fire to kill a Deathworld's lesson," he whispered, a weak grin crossing his scarred face. Reed helped him sit up as medics rushed over. Threx's gaze wandered across the humans, tending to both human and alien wounded alike. Soldiers once enemies now shared water and bandages. Humanity's compassion had no borders. As they carried him inside, Threx looked at Reed. "Why do you care so much?" he asked, his voice trembling. Reed answered softly. "Because every life matters here, friend or foe." Threx closed his eyes. "Then maybe we were wrong about you," he said. "All of us." Word spread fast across the human networks. The alien general who defied his own empire to save Earth. His name became a symbol of unity. The media called him the Turned General, and across the galaxy, even alien colonies whispered his story. Days later, Reed and Threx sat in the base infirmary. The desert wind howled outside the walls. Threx's body was weak, but his spirit carried the weight of both worlds. Reed placed a small metallic badge in his hand, the Earth Defense emblem. "You earned this," Reed said. "Not as a soldier, but as someone who stood for something greater." Threx stared at it for a long time, his eyes reflecting the light. "On my world, this would mean betrayal," he said. "But here, it feels like belonging." Reed nodded. "Maybe that's what redemption is. Not escaping who we were, but choosing who we become." Outside, the sky rumbled as distant thunder rolled across the horizon. The remains of Threx's fleet hovered in orbit, silent and uncertain. Some ships began to withdraw, their commanders unwilling to face a planet that broke their strongest. Threx sent a message through the human relay system. His voice was weak but clear. "To the warriors of Varnak," he said. "You once followed me to conquer. Now follow me to understand. I have seen true strength, and it lies not in destruction, but in survival and mercy." The message traveled through the stars. Many ignored it, but some listened. Some questioned everything they'd been taught. Seeds of doubt began to grow in the Empire's heart. That night, Reed visited Threx once more. The alien sat by the window, watching Earth's moon rise. "I used to laugh at this planet," Threx said. "Now it feels like it's laughing back, not in mockery, but in forgiveness." Reed smiled. "That's Earth for you. It breaks you, then rebuilds you." Threx chuckled weakly. "It rebuilt me heavier," he said, "but stronger." The two sat in silence, listening to the hum of machines and the whisper of wind outside. Above them, the stars shimmered faintly, witnesses to a story that had changed more than one world. Reed finally said, "You've paid your price, Threx." The alien turned his gaze toward him. "No," he said quietly. "I didn't pay it. I earned it." The night deepened, and the human base lights glowed softly against the dark. On the edge of the death world, an alien who once called Earth weak now called it home. He had come to conquer, but instead, he learned the greatest truth of all, that redemption is not freedom from gravity, but acceptance of its weight. The stars above Earth shimmered like cold diamonds, silent witnesses to a story that had changed the balance of the galaxy. Months had passed since the Battle of the Desert. The skies were calm again, and the scars of war were fading. But what remained was far more powerful, a story that spread beyond light and time. General Threx, once the proud conqueror of worlds, now walked slowly across the human base courtyard. His steps were still heavy under Earth's gravity, yet he no longer hated the weight. It reminded him that he was alive, that he had purpose. Each step echoed the lesson the planet had carved into him. Pain teaches, gravity humbles, and life continues. Children ran past him, laughing, some waving small Earth flags stitched beside tiny alien symbols. Threx smiled faintly. He had become a strange kind of legend, a bridge between two worlds that once saw each other as enemies. Inside the command center, Captain Reed stood before a large holographic display showing transmissions from distant systems. "Look at this," Reed said as Threx entered. "Your message has reached half the galaxy. Some of your own fleets have refused orders to attack." Threx stared at the glowing screen, seeing the emblem of Varnak flicker beside Earth's. "They're listening," he said softly. "I never thought my voice would travel this far." Reed smiled. "It's not your voice they're hearing, it's your change." Outside, the night wind swept over the base, carrying dust and hope together. Humanity had rebuilt faster than anyone expected, and now they were not rebuilding alone. Dozens of alien volunteers, once enemies, worked beside humans, repairing machines, planting new life in the wastelands. Threx often helped in silence, teaching them how to adapt their technology to Earth's harshness. His body still bore scars, but his spirit carried strength that no empire could forge. He had become something the galaxy had never seen, an alien molded by Earth. One evening, as the sun bled across the horizon, Reed and Threx stood side by side, watching the desert glow red and gold. "Strange, isn't it?" Reed said. "You came here to conquer a world, and now you help it grow." Threx gave a slow nod. "I thought power was about control," he said. "But Earth showed me it's about endurance. Every breath here costs effort, yet your people never stop breathing." Reed looked up at the fading sky. "That's humanity's secret. General, we don't win because we're the strongest. We win because we refuse to give up." Threx turned his gaze toward the distant stars. "And now I understand why the galaxy fears you," he said. "You don't conquer worlds, you survive them." Weeks later, a council meeting was held between human leaders and representatives of the Varnak Empire. For the first time in history, the Deathworld hosted peace instead of war. Threx stood before both sides, his towering figure commanding attention. "I once mocked this planet," he began, his voice deep but calm. "I thought its gravity would crush me, and it did, but not my body, my arrogance. I came here seeking conquest, and found truth. If we can survive together here, then maybe the galaxy can too." The room fell silent. Even the translators paused. Reed watched proudly from the back. Threx continued. "Earth taught me that strength is not in domination, but in endurance. Mercy is not weakness, it's courage, and unity is not peace. It's struggle shared." Applause filled the chamber, not the kind of applause that follows speeches, but the kind that marks a beginning. That night, as stars stretched over the endless dark, a message was sent from Earth, not of warning, but of wisdom. It carried one sentence that would echo through generations. On Earth, even gravity is a teacher. In the years that followed, the tale of the alien general who bowed to the Deathworld became a legend told across space stations and colonies. Young soldiers of every species listened in silence, learning that true strength comes not from power, but from the heart that refuses to break. Threx spent the rest of his days on Earth, walking beneath its heavy skies, planting seeds in the soil he once cursed. Sometimes, he would look up at the stars and whisper, "The galaxy will remember." And it did. Not as the world of monsters, but as the world that taught monsters how to be more. Earth remained what it always was, unyielding, beautiful, dangerous, and alive, a death world that gave life new meaning.